Hello students, welcome to a lesson through the virtual training center of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher, and in this lockdown period, since we are not able to go to school, children, we will be doing many lessons here online through the virtual class. So come on, let's proceed to our lesson for today.
So our lesson for today will be a lesson in Standard 10th English, and it is a beautiful story called The Three Questions. Now children, whenever we are faced with different situations in life, or whenever we come across any difficult problem in our life, we are always faced with certain questions that we want to answer and we want to ask someone. We often have many problems to which we need solutions. Okay, so there is constantly a kind of conflict going on in our minds. For example, a simple thing like whether you want to study at this point of time, or should you close your book and spend some time watching TV or playing with your friends. Okay, so such small things, we are always in conflict with ourselves. We always keep on asking questions to ourselves, and we want to clear and we want to get answers to these questions. We discuss this with our parents. Sometimes we discuss our issues and our problems with our elder brother, our elder sister, our siblings, and with our parents, our teachers, etc. Now, in this particular story also, the main character in our story is faced with certain questions. Okay, he wants answers to some of his questions. Now, who is the main character in our story for today? It is a king. And our king today, he has got three questions to which he wants certain answers. Now, children, you must have heard about the stories of Akbar and Birbal. You must have heard the stories about many ancient kings, isn't it? You must have heard about Tenali Rama. So, in these kind of stories, you will see that the kings or the emperors, they usually come up with some sort of tricky situation which their courtiers or their assistants or their ministers solve. So, in the same way, our king here, he came across, or his mind was troubling him, and he wanted answers to three questions. Now, let us see what the questions are, and was he able to find the solution to these problems or the questions that he had in his mind. Whom did he approach in order to find the answers? And what happened in the story? And finally, was the king satisfied with the answers that he got? So, all these questions we will try to solve today along with this king. So, let's go to our story. But before that, let me tell you, children, that this is a long story, children. And along with the story, you have many exercises also connected to it. So we will not be able to complete it today itself. So what we will do is, I will record the lesson half now, and the remaining half of the lesson I will record it and show it to you at a later date. So what will happen is that you will be not getting bored also watching the entire video at a time. You will not get tired also. At the same time, you will understand the lesson also. So in today's part of the lesson, we will look at the story and the exercises in the textbook which are related to the story. In the next part of the lesson, we will look at the grammar exercises, the vocabulary exercises, etc., which are part of this lesson. So let us move on now and let us see what questions the king had in his mind and what was troubling him so much. So let us see now. So question number 1, which the king had in his mind was, what is the right time to begin something? Now this was the question which the king had uppermost in his mind. Now you must be knowing that many of us, we refer to the stars, we refer to the panchang, okay? We ask the elders at home, we refer to various kind of calendars, and we try to see what is the right time for us to do things, isn't it? So now the king also had this question that when he wanted to do something important, now he was the king and the welfare of the people living in his kingdom was in his hands. So whenever he took a decision, he wanted to be sure that he would be right. Okay, he would take the right decision. So this was the first question that he had in his mind. What is the right time to begin something? This was the first question, question number one. Question number two was, which people should he listen to? That is, what kind of people should be his advisors? Or what kind of company should he keep? Now, you all know that when a person is an important person, like a king or a person who's got a very high post, okay, he's got a very high kind of a job, there are people who gather around them just for their own benefit. They do not mean any good, but they are just around you doing a lot of chamchagiri and giving you wrong advices just for their personal gain. So now the king knew that if he listened to such people and he took decisions, his people would suffer. So that was the second question which he had in his mind. Which people should he listen to? The third question which the king had in his mind was, what is the most important thing for him to do? Okay, so what time should he do something? What people should he take advice from? And third most important thing was, what thing should he do first? For example, if he has got three things to do, which thing should get priority? What thing should he do first? So these were the three questions which were troubling him, and he wanted answers to these questions. So now he was a king. So what he did was, he sent messengers throughout his kingdom. So you will see in the olden times there was no TV, okay? There was no media, there was no newspaper. In today's times, if you want to tell something, if you want to convey messages to people, what do? You simply come on the TV and tell people. For example, now we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, and you know that there are lockdowns which are happening. Okay, now we are in the opening stage. The lockdown is being lifted slowly, but whenever an important announcement about this lockdown used to happen, the prime minister, the chief minister, they used to come on TV and they used to give the message to the people. But in the ancient times, such kind of things were not there. So we had these messengers. So you can see one of them is beating the drum. So one person used to beat the drum and people used to gather around them, and the other person used to read out the royal message. So the king sent messengers throughout his kingdom, and naturally now people wanted to please their king. Everyone wants to please their king or their leader. So people started giving the king different kind of advices. And many wise men came to the king, okay, and they started answering his questions. So let us take an example of the first question. So what is the right time to begin something was the first question. So some people said that you must prepare a timetable and you should follow the timetable strictly. Someone else said that there is no guarantee, any time could be the right time, so you cannot say what will happen next. And the king started getting so many different answers, but our king was not at all satisfied. You can see here, the king is sitting and different people giving the king different answers, but the king is still in deep thought. The king is still not happy and satisfied with the answers that he is getting from these people. So he learns one fine day about a hermit. Now, who's a hermit? A person who lives in solitude as a religious discipline. So a hermit is like, you can say, a sadhu or a sannyasi. Okay. Now these hermits, they live alone somewhere in the jungle and they pray to God, they do tapasya, etc. You must have also heard about people who take maun vrats, that is, they do not speak at all. Okay, so these hermits, they lead this kind of a life. They live alone, they live away from the people, they do not meet too many people. Okay, so the king learnt about this hermit, and the king also learnt that this hermit never used to meet all people. He used to meet just the poor and the needy people. So the king decided to go and meet this hermit. But he knew that if he went as a king, then the hermit wouldn't meet him. So the king put on ordinary clothes and he went to meet the hermit alone. Now you will see, look at the arrow here on the screen. You will see that the king's bodyguards are hiding here in the jungle. Okay, and the king is going alone towards the hermit's hut to meet the hermit. So here the king meets the hermit and he sees that the hermit is digging something, that the hermit is making a hole in the ground. So the king looks at the hermit and the king tells the hermit, "You are tired, let me take the spade and work in your place." Now the hermit listens to the king, but he does not tell him anything. He doesn't reply to the king. Okay, so now the king is asking the hermit to give him some work. He's asking the hermit to let him help to dig the beds or to dig the holes in the ground. Let's see what happens. So the hermit quietly gives him the spade and stands aside and observes what the king is doing. So you will see here that the king wants many answers from this person, but the hermit doesn't seem to speak too much. Okay, he's not the kind who talks a lot. But still, the king keeps on working. And then, after completing some work, he asks the hermit his question. "I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions." But does the hermit answer him at this point? Not at all. The hermit keeps quiet and he does not give him any answer. Suddenly, they see a wounded man running out of the forest. You can see this man. He's wounded. Wounded means there is blood flowing out of his body and there are wounds on his body. Someone has hit him or an animal has tried to harm him. So he suddenly comes rushing out of the forest. As soon as the king and the hermit they see this man, what do? They run towards him and the king washes and covers the wound with a handkerchief. But the blood is continuously flowing from the wound. Can you see here how the king and the hermit are trying to help this poor man in order to stop the blood from flowing out of the wound? Now, if too much of bleeding happens, children, too much of blood flows out of your body, what happens is you go into shock and then you die. They do not want the man to die, they want to save the man. But do they know who he is? Both of them don't know who he is. The hermit might know because we don't know, the hermit has got powers. But the king doesn't definitely know who this man is. He's just trying to help him out of humanity. The king and the hermit also removes his clothes and they find a large wound on his stomach. They somehow try to seal the wound and they try to stop the flow of blood and then they carry him into the hut. Okay, and they make him rest. Now both of them, the king as well as the wounded man, they sleep inside the hut. Okay, and it is morning and suddenly in the morning when the king wakes up, he sees that the wounded man is saying sorry to him. He's saying, "Forgive me. Okay, I have tried to harm you." Now the king is not able to understand what happened. So the king asks him to explain. He says that, "I am your enemy and I had come to kill you, and I would have been successful if your soldiers or bodyguards were not hiding in the jungle." So the king is very happy that he has made peace with his enemy so easily, and also the enemy has become his friend. So He says, okay, it is not an issue. I forgive you and I promise to give back your property also. So they become friends. Two enemies, they become friends. And then again, the king wants to know the answers to his three questions, isn't it? So he goes out and he starts looking for the hermit. He says, for the last time, I beg you to answer my questions, wise man. And then the hermit gives him the answers to his questions. So, what are the answers? So, the three questions are, what is the most important time to do anything? And the hermit says, the time is now. Now means in the present. So, whatever time we are having is in our hands now. Yesterday is gone. You cannot do anything about the past, and tomorrow is not promised. You do not know whether you will live to see the next day. So, what is the most important time? It is the present, the time that you have in your hand today. Okay? So, for you also, even though now you are in the lockdown period and you feel, oh no, what will I do? All of us are worried. But remember, this time is very, very important for us. This is the time when you're saving a lot of time by not traveling, not going to school. So you sit at home and you can make maximum use of this particular time. Question number two that the king asked was, who is the most important person to refer to? So they say the person who is with you at the moment. So whoever is with you is the most important person, because you don't know whether you will meet anyone else. Okay, so value the people who are with you, give them importance, ask for their opinion, all right, and see to it that they are felt wanted. You make them feel as if they are important. And the third question was answered in this way. He said that to do good to the person with you is the most important job to do. So, like they say, charity begins at home. So, whatever you good you want to do it with the people whom you are with instead of trying to help an outsider. So, the three questions of the king were answered, and the king was very happy and satisfied. And he said, "Thank you to the hermit," and he went back to his kingdom and ruled his people wisely and well. So, this was a story of the three questions. Now let us look at the person who has written the story. So the story is written by this person called Leo Tolstoy. He has written two masterpieces, that is two books or two stories which are supposed to be exemplary, excellent. Okay, so one was War and Peace and the other one is Anna Karenina. Now, these two are considered as the finest novels ever written. So if you make a list of the best novels written, these two will be on the list. War and Peace and Anna Karenina. So Leo Tolstoy not only used to write novels, he used to also write short stories, and this was one example, the three questions. So children, this was a story. Now what we will do is we will look at certain exercises which are connected to the story before we wind up today. So let's see this. Let us see whether you understood the story. So let us see whether you can match the titles with the contents of the proper paragraph. So the first one, once a certain king, something important to do. So this matches with the title, The King's Announcement. So the king announced, isn't it, that he wanted someone to answer the three questions that he had in his mind. So this was the king's announcement. Many learned people, time for everything. So the king received various answers. Equally varied, gave the reward to none. That means he was not satisfied with the answers that he received. That means his questions remained unanswered. When the king arrived, dash my first attention. So here the king meets the hermit. Okay, And when the king meets the hermit doesn't pay any attention to the king. In spite of the king asking and giving him help, the hermit doesn't talk much to the king at all. The hermit listened, continued to dig. So the king helps the hermit. The king turned round, gave it to him, the wounded stranger. Okay? Meanwhile, the son, said the king. So the stranger begs for pardon. You do not know all my life. So he's telling him, the stranger tells him about his intentions. That is, you helped me. You did not, you saved my life. But do you know, I had come to kill you. So he had vicious intentions, means wicked intentions, wicked motives. The king was very glad the day before because the king gains a friend. And do you not see, sent into this life? So here what is happening is the hermit points out the answers to the king. So this is about the various paragraphs and about the ideas which are associated with the paragraphs. Now children, do not go in for these ready-made answers. Now we are in a format where we are not interacting with each other, isn't it? I'm not asking you questions and you're not answering me. So what you should do is, whenever a question comes up, you should pause the video, try to find out the answers, and then check with the answers that I will give you or I have given you. Okay, so these are small things that we should do, small changes that we should make in the course of these lessons. Let us look at one more exercise connected to this lesson. So the character traits of the king and the hermit are mixed up. So we have around 7 or 8 character traits, means qualities. Some of them belong to the king and the others belong to the hermit. Let us try to sort them out and put them in the right box. Now I will do 3 each for you. The remaining you're supposed to fill out on your own. So the first one is feeble, helpful, enlightened, impatient, eager to succeed, patient, convincing, and wise. So what qualities do you think the king has? So the king here in our story is a little impatient because he keeps on repeating his questions. He is also helpful, but he helps that poor wounded man, and you will see that he is eager to succeed because he wants to make some changes. He asks questions in order to improve himself. So he is eager to succeed. What about a hermit here now? A hermit is feeble. Feeble means he is physically weak. Okay? And he is enlightened. He's got a lot of knowledge. And of course, he is wise. Alright? So these are some exercises with regards to your story in the textbook. Let us look at one more exercise today before we wind up for now. So what does varied mean? In paragraph 3, if you look, there is this word varied. So what does varied mean? Varied means different. Okay, we say various, isn't it? Say if there are various animals in the jungle, that means there are different kinds of animals in the jungle. Look at the second one. Many learned people came to the court and gave. So did they give the same answers? Did all of them give the correct answers? Did they give different answers or wrong answers? So now the king's question was such that you could not say whether the answer is right or whether the answer is wrong. So what is the answer here? They all gave different answers. Okay? So the king was not satisfied, but we cannot say that their answers were wrong. The synonym of convinced is what? Is it persuaded? Is it happy? Is it unhappy? Or is it angry? So in this case, it is satisfied. Okay? Or we can say happy. Now children, persuade means to convince someone. But when that person is convinced, then we say he is either satisfied or we say he is happy. Look at the next one. The king wanted to know the dash time to begin everything. So did he want to know the right time, exact time, proper time, or good time? Now the word which is used in the story is the right time. I pray you to answer my question. Here pray means what? Is he pleading to God? As we usually say when we pray, what do? You pray to God usually. So here is he praying to God, or is he requesting someone, or is he ordering the hermit, or is he suggesting the hermit to answer his questions? So yes, he is making a request, which is very polite. Okay. Now choose an adverb that collocates with breathed. Now what is the meaning of breathing? What is the meaning of collocating? Collocating means something, two words which go together. Collocations means usually two words which go together. Okay. For example, have your tea, have your lunch. So these are words. Have tea, have lunch. These are words which usually go together. Take a walk. Okay. So here, which word will go with breathed? So will it be breathed hurriedly, breathed heavily, breathed hardly, or breathed calmly? So yes, it will be breathed heavily. Okay. So these were the answers to this particular exercise. Let us look at one more exercise now. So here we are doing nothing but we are rearranging. So consider this list of different things that happened and rearrange them in the order of time. That is what happened first, what happened next, and so on. Now this also, children, is one assignment for you. You have to try and do it yourself, and then you can come back and check the answers that I'm going to show you now. So once you have understood the story and once you have read the story from the textbook, you will definitely be able to do this exercise, because here you're not doing anything, you're just putting the story in sequential order. So look at the first one. The bearded man resolved to kill the king. The king went alone to see the hermit. The king executed the bearded man's brother. The king spent the night at the hermit's hut. The bearded man laid an ambush to kill the king. The king's bodyguard recognized and wounded the bearded man. The bearded man came out of the ambush. Now, what will be the sequence? See, this will come first. The king executed the bearded man's brother, so that is why the bearded man wanted to take revenge. Okay, so the king went alone to see the hermit. The bearded man had resolved to kill the king now. And you will see that the bearded man laid an ambush, means he created a plan to kill the king. But what happened? The bearded man came out of the ambush, and the king's bodyguards recognized and wounded the bearded man. The king spent the night at the hermit's hut. Okay, so this will be the sequence of things, children. So today's video we will stop here now and we will pick up next time. We will continue with this lesson. So let us just recollect what we have done in today's video. So we talked about the story. I tried to tell you the gist of the story using pictures. Okay. Now after you have listened to this video, after you have seen this video, I would recommend that you go back and read the story properly. Whenever you read a story or a paragraph from the English textbook, always have your dictionary ready with you so that you are able to check the meaning of the difficult words which you find. We also talked a little bit about Leo Tolstoy, the person who has written the story. And then we looked at the various exercises which are connected purely to the story in this textbook. And like I told you before, I will do the remaining part of this lesson, that is the remaining exercises connected to vocabulary and connected to grammar, etc., in the next video that I will be uploading soon for you, children.
So children, wasn't that a wonderful video? And did you enjoy watching it? So if you want to watch more such videos in future, then please like this video and also subscribe to our channel, the MCGM Portal for Education, and also hit the bell button so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video here. Thank you so much for now. Let's meet again soon.